of Perry's involvement in Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Elaine Luria was a member of the actual January 6th committee. She serves as a Democratic congresswoman of Virginia until losing her re-election bid to Republican Jen Kiggans. Former Congresswoman Luria joins me now. It's great to have you on the program. I wonder your first thoughts as someone who served in this committee, watching the gavel change hands, and someone like Scott Perry, who really does seem quite implicated, or at least at the center of a lot of what you were investigating, possibly being in a position to sort of launch, probes directed at the very entity that is currently in possession of his phone.
Well, Chris, thanks for having me back. The very first thing that comes to mind, watching the thing that played out over an entire week to select the speaker, and all of the back and forth with some right-wing, factions within the party, is that this is going to be a Congress that is filled with grievances and not governing. I don't see how Kevin McCarthy is going to actually get anything accomplished. And, they've listed their long list of grievances, including this committee to investigate the investigators. As a member of the January 6th committee myself, I wouldn't be a bit surprised, if they come after me and my colleagues for performing our duties on that committee. And, let them have at it. The truth is that, we performed the work we were tasked to do to uncover the facts surrounding January 6th. And we were on the right side of history. Another thing that strikes my mind as well, and, a little bit ironic in the similarity in names, but I feel like we've entered a whole new era of McCarthyism here. And we saw that didn't really end well. So I think we're in for, a tough ride, watching the things unfold in the House under this, I don't want to call it leadership, but with Kevin McCarthy as the speaker.
I want you to say a little more on that. I mean, so the model that they're talking about is a church committee, which is a famous committee in the 1970s after Watergate and towards the end of the Vietnam War, where a famous senator, a liberal, Frank Church, launched an investigation into the sprawling secret government that had been stood up in the United States post-World War II through the National Security Act, the CIA. It was incredibly important to show a lot of transparency, right? They found all sorts of really important stuff about what Hoover had been up to, the CIA. So that's what they say they're doing. Jim McGovern and yourself have invoked McCarthy, right, where Joe McCarthy goes around finding secret communists hiding under the bed in every corner office of the American government. Why do you think it's more like the latter than the one that they say they're doing?
I feel that it's just completely politically motivated. I fully 100% believe in congressional oversight and the use of congressional committees to determine the effective operation of our agencies within the government. And there are committees within Congress, who do oversight for the FBI, for the CIA, for, all the list of folks that they want to delve into in this investigation. But setting up what, just appears to be a politically driven show committee for this purpose, directed specifically at investigations that are ongoing into members of Congress themselves who are going to serve on those committees that are going to do the investigating. Right. There's nothing transparent or, that appears to be legitimate about it.
The new panel, which is structured as a subcommittee of judiciary, is expected to be chaired by Jim Jordan. According to source familiar in the matter, subpoena power will be tasked with investigating law enforcement agencies as part of a mandate to probe the weaponization of the federal government. Are you confident that the message has gotten through, or some kind of public censure accountability has landed with people that were implicated by the findings of the January 6th committee for their involvement in what was the first ever real coup attempt in the U.S.?
Well, I think they're trying to perfect their tactics of distraction. If they turn it back and try to weaponize their own investigation into the investigators, they're really using a distraction tactic in my mind. And I do believe that it has sunk in with the majority of the American public. The severity of the things that happened on January 6th, the people who were involved, starting with President Trump, his close allies, people like Steve Perry, who you mentioned just before this. But the truth is really the only place in this country I think it hasn't sunk in is in the Republican majority in the House. And they are continuing to use every tactic they can to deflect from their own culpability, a large number of them in the events that happened leading up to and on January 6th.
You're in a district that was always going to be a very difficult district to run in this year, just based on Virginia redistricting and what the sort of basic Republican Democratic performance in that district was. Do you think what do you think the political terrain will look like in, say, a year and a half now with this Republican House, no longer being something sort of off to the side saying we'll do all this when we're in there, but actually performing or not performing?
Well, the truth is that gets reflected in Virginia in odd numbered years. We have a special election tomorrow to fill a state Senate vacancy, and then we have our entire General Assembly on the ballot in 2023. So we're not going to be waiting till 2024 to reflect back on, essentially how government is working for Virginians, and a lot of things that are on the line, things that as a member of Congress we weren't able to codify at the federal level that, are battles in our state house in Richmond are going to be decided right here in the battleground of this district that's going to make up the majority in the Virginia House and Senate. So I think that'll be something that we're going to be watching closely, especially the election that's happening tomorrow.
Final question. Do you think it helped or hurt you to be on that committee?
I don't want to spend a lot of time speculating about that. The truth is that I know I did the right thing. I stood on the right side of history, and it wasn't about my getting reelected. It was about getting to the bottom of the facts so that we could prevent something like this from ever happening again in the United States. And the truth is I feel like I performed that as a member of the committee, and we've made a historical accounting, and we've passed along our recommendations and referrals to the Department of Justice, and we are watching and waiting for them to essentially keep running with that baton to make sure that accountability is held at every level for those responsible.
All right, Elaine Luria, thank you so much for joining us tonight.